Hi, welcome back to the PAFA wire wrapping channel. I have here something that I'm kind of proud of. It's a weave wrap over a labradorite, and I have a little bead attached here. I just want to do something a little bit different today. I'm not going to show you how to make this. What I want to do is welcome people who are new to wire wrapping and help you see that, you don't have to start with anything like this, and that you can just learn what you need as far as tools, and then watch some easy videos to learn some skills and just practice, practice, practice. And that's really how you'll get to the point of making something like this or something even much better than this. Okay, so if you're just getting started with wire wrapping, there's a few things that you should know. Safety is really important. You don't want to have an open can or an open bottle or a bowl of food or anything in your work area, even if, like me, you're working in your dining room. Make sure that you're sitting as ergonomically well as you can, that your posture is good, which mine is never. I've actually gotten tics in my eyelid because I guess, hunched over too much or tightened, tensed up too much or something. It's easy to get really tense when you're doing this because you're focusing so much on what you're doing and you stop thinking about how your body's feeling. Maybe every 20 minutes, get up and just stretch, make sure that your body's not like cramping up or anything while you do this. You don't want to ruin your health. The other thing is your hands. Your hands are everything in wire wrapping. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and fortunately it's moderate and mostly under control, but I can tell if I'm overdoing it. My joints, especially my thumbs, start to hurt a lot, and people can get carpal tunnel syndrome. So just be very aware of how your hands feel and your neck and your back and everything while you're doing this to be safe, because it is not that easy to do wire wrapping without getting yourself kind of twisted into knots physically, so be careful. So you want to have a container for all your sharp bits that you cut off with your flush cutters. Oh, and let me explain flush cutters. They're called flush cutters because one side is very, very fat. This cuts it flush. The other thing is being able to see what I'm doing. And I have this visor, and it's got magnifiers, and it actually comes with, I think, some extra ones. So if this starts to not be good enough, you can replace it with a stronger one. And I also have this, I don't think you can see clearly, but it's a great big, strong magnifier, and it's really great. It has a light. It also has the magnifying glass. When I'm not using it as a magnifier, it illuminates my table beautifully. Think about that, because when you do a weave especially, it can be really, really hard to see the details of your weave without magnification. So keep that in mind. So we spend a lot of time at, well, some people would say a bench. I say my dining room table, because I am not someone who has a studio. I don't have room in my house for that. So my studio is really my dining room table. I have supplies that are somewhat organized, but I certainly don't have, lots and lots of cubbies and cabinets and wooden roll things for my spools. I just have the basic organization I can have, and I've cluttered up my dining room, and I'm not happy about that because, it only looks good around the holidays. But you can start at any level and with whatever you have in your home. I would just like to tell you the things that you'll need as you begin. And I've talked about this in previous videos, but you want to start with wires and tools. Those are the basics. And of course, stones to wrap. So I get a lot of my wire from Rio Grande, but you can get it on Amazon and Parawire, lots of places. I use a lot of sterling, some rose gold, gold filled, and mostly copper. Copper is great, especially for beginners. It's very easy to work with. It's not expensive. And when you oxidize it, it just looks fantastic. So that piece I just showed you was oxidized copper. So you want to get yourself a variety of wires, wire gauges basically from like 14 to 30. And the higher the number, the thinner the gauge. 30 is kind of like thread, and 14 is super thick and very, very hard to work with. Most beginning wire wrappers are going to work with something like 20 gauge for the main wires, and then 22 to 24 for wrapping the wires together. And if you're going to do weaves, 28, 26 gauge are great for that. Half round is really, really great, especially with square. I think beginners should start with round because square can be very unforgiving if you twist it the wrong way. It is really great to use, but you want to get a little bit of experience with round wire first. So I would recommend just have a lot of different wires, different sizes, different shapes, and you will do great because you don't want to find something on the internet you want to try and then realize you don't have the right wires for it. So collect some wires as you go and collect stones, or you can get them at all kinds of places. You can get them in rock shops, you can get them online, you can find them actually when you're out just walking around the beach. And believe it or not, something like this, people are interested in. And one of the things I do to make just a plain old sea stone look interesting is I will get these little charms. This is a bit big for this stone, but basically you can take a sea stone with a flat side and you can glue a charm like this onto it. And if you really want to make it stand out, now you can either break that off and sand it down at the end, or you can utilize that little hole by gluing a little crystal onto it to really give it some pizzazz. And then just wrap the stone as usual, but it'll just look different and unique. And believe me, people like that sort of thing. So you don't have to spend a lot of money because you can just pick these up pretty much anywhere. You know, just look for something that has a flat side or something that's easy to wrap if you want to practice with these kinds of stones before you go out and spend money on, you know, semi-precious stones that have been polished or cabochons or what have you. Like that's a labradorite. Cabochons are flat on the back and rounded on the front, and they're the easiest stone to work with as far as wrapping, but you want to learn how to wrap things like this. This is very thick, chunky, and I do have a video on how to wrap this, but a chunky stone or in a regular polished but tumbled stone that doesn't have any specific dimensions like a cabochon does. These dimensions are repeatable when you have cabochons, but the stones, these are just natural stones that have been polished. That's a sodalite. And then there are crystals you can get too. A lot of people like crystals. You can wrap those. And even sea glass and shell, all of these things can be wrapped, and it's a lot of fun. So you want to have a variety of stones and shapes of the stones to work with. This is already pre-designed into a mushroom shape. That's a labradorite. In addition to your stones, it's always good to have some beads that go, either beads that are the same color as your wire, like gold or silver, or a variety of little crystals and beads. Some are round, some are bicones. Bicones have some pointy ends. I don't know if you can see that. These are round. And let me see if I have any other bicones that are easier to see than that. I think you can tell the shape of the bicone there. So it's kind of got a pointy side. On both sides are a little bit pointy. And you know, it's anywhere from like 2 to 5 millimeters of beads or any of these crystals. And that's a pretty good size to have on hand. And you can get ones like these at Michael's or something. They're pretty inexpensive for a whole lot of them. Just to have a variety of different colors, to have accents. It's always good to adorn your pieces with accents whenever possible. I think it helps to make them pop. Going back to the tools, wire straighteners are great. I usually try to straighten as I pull it off a spool. It makes it easier to straighten the wires. Also, my favorite, tweezer nose, flush cutters, and sometimes I use the round nose. I haven't done videos where I've really used these a lot, but these are great for making a V. These are flat nose, if you want to make a V in the bottom of your wires. And then there are a variety of things you can do with chain nose and bent nose. Also, bail making pliers, different types. And I love having 1 or 2 clamps around in case I want to do a weave. You put the wires in the clamp and it keeps them fairly straight, because when you do a weave, it's very easy to get the 4 wires kind of wonky, too tight or too loose when you're doing the wraps, and this will keep them all lined up. The last thing I would say is I have tweezers. Tweezers are great, or pins. They are really good for getting small wires out of small areas. I'm sorry, these have been overused, and I use them in glue so they don't look too great, but you get my point. Anyway, so tweezers or pins can be very helpful. And I just put this Stretch Magic elastic around here so that I can hang them like that. And this item here, I think I found in Michael's or something. I use it for my tools, but they do actually sell tool holders at places like Rio Grande. I really love this particular item, and I don't know where I got it, but it's just great. In addition to those, you probably want to have a hammer and a little block and a cushion for the block so that the noises and the impact is absorbed a bit, and I'll show you those in a sec. That's for, you know, if you want to work harden your wires or you want them just to have a certain look. I've got a couple of hammers here. That's a chasing hammer. I think that's just a regular hammer. And let me see if I can show you so like a block and a cushion there. Those are very good for, well, those are important actually if you have a hammer. It's also good to have a pencil and a piece of paper if you want to sketch out a design first, or if you want to trace your stone, so then you can put the wire around the tracing and you know exactly how much wire you want to use. I'll go back to the wire for a second. The bobbins are wonderful for your weaving wire or your half round wire. I don't use it really for the 22 gauge wires or 18 gauge. It just is more cumbersome, and this is really great. It keeps the weaving wire, the really thin weaving wire, from getting tangled because there's too much of it rolling away, and also the half round, it keeps it from twisting. You don't want your half round getting twisted. So in order to remember what's what, get a magic marker or Sharpie and just write down what is in here. And when you finish it out, if you want to change out what's inside, just take some alcohol and that'll wipe off. Okay, so the other thing that is helpful, masking tape. Once you have a frame and you still want to do some work with your piece, you can tape the frame around the piece, and that'll keep it stable while you do some other things with your wire. If you get some deep scratches, you can get some sort of files, like these diamond files. You have to be careful. You want to use the finest grit on this, or on sandpaper, or with steel wool, which are all things you can use to sand out scratches. And as a beginner, and even when you're not a beginner, it's really easy to scratch wires, so you want to have ways to get your scratches out. This is one of my favorites, especially not just for scratches, but for when I oxidize something like this. It comes out almost black, and while this looks really brutal, it does a great job as long as your wires are really connected well. But if you have anything that's slightly loose, this will yank it out. So you want to make sure your wires are all tight. And then you just go over it on a low speed, and it will shine it up so that the light comes out from the dark, and then you have your depth, and it looks beautiful. So keep that in mind. A Dremel is a wonderful tool to have, and you can buy these at any hardware store, and you can watch videos, and I'll eventually make a video on doing that once we get a little bit warmer, and it's almost there. We're in March, so I'll be doing some liver of sulfur videos and things like that for the oxidizing and the polishing to show you that. But I will warn you, when you use a Dremel, make sure that you, with this particular head, the Dremels come with a lot of different heads. This one, I don't know what the name of it is. It's obviously got a lot of little wires in it. And the problem is, as it spins and you're pressing against something, these little wires can pop off and go in different directions. And you want eye protection, okay? I've had them pop off, and then because I was stupid and I did this indoors a few times, I literally stepped on one of these sharp wires. It went into my foot, and that is not something you want to repeat. So listen to me and don't let it happen. Do it outside if you can. Hopefully you have an electric outlet outside your home or something. You can always use an extension cord that goes out of your house and just do it on your balcony or your deck or whatever. So you can make your own chains or cords, or you can buy them, whichever's easier for you. I've made some cords here using copper ends, and I made a video on how to do this, so you can look for that if you want to know how. And this is one of the reasons you want a hammer, because you don't want the ends of these pieces to be easy to move. When you hammer it, it makes it harder. so it's stiffer. You can do it for design purposes or you can do it for function. One of the things I do is I buy half hard wire. Oh, here it is. Half hard, this is gold filled. So if I want gold filled earrings, they're very expensive ear wires. You can, like these are silver, they're pre-made, and I have a couple of gold that are pre-made, but they're very expensive to buy them pre-made, but you can actually just make them yourself. And I'll do a video on that at some point, but using half hard is important for ear wires. And even, these are 22 gauge, even this is a little bit, you could hammer it if you want, but don't hammer the end that goes in the ear because that will be bad. It will make it too fat to go into the ear. But these won't bend as easily when you try to make them. And you don't want ear wires that are going to get bent all out of shape if you're trying to take them out of your ears or put them in your ears. So keep that in mind for ear wires. This is 22. You can use 20 gauge. You don't want to use much bigger than 20 gauge for ear wires. As you can see, I've got a pile of stones here. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and you want to have a way to organize them. Now, you've seen my little bead thing, so I have a lot of these. These come in, as you can see, they're different colors. Some of them come with just this color, this clear color, sort of an aqua, clear aqua, and some of them come with, like all different colors. I'll show you. Basically, these come inside a single container. There's 8 on each side, so I think 7 or 8 on each side, so you've got like 14 or 16 of these in a case. That helps to organize those. I also have bought these because I teach and I do like to keep my cabochons organized. So when I teach, I use cabochons. So you can get things with little dividers that just make that a little bit easier to keep organized. The other ones don't have dividers. So make sure you have enough space to work. I have this towel here because I do videos, and my little pink self-healing mat is very distracting looking in the videos, or so my husband said. Anyway, you can't see it here because my camera's too far back, but down at the bottom they have lines saying, how many inches, and half inches, quarter inches, everything. And the other thing is Loctite putty, because you can put some Loctite putty, just a little bit, on your self-healing mat, and then press that down. You don't want a lot because you don't want this sticking up really high or uneven or anything, but you just want it to be stuck there, right in the center. You can eyeball the center pretty well. Then it'll make it so much easier to wrap your wires around and be able to see where you need to bend your wires up at the top in both areas so that they're right even with where the middle of the other part of your stone is. So that's a tip that I hope is helpful. Some things around the house, again, for people who are just getting started and you can't afford a lot of handy dandy things. This is great. It helps you a lot. It's not just about not affording it, but also making your life easier, because as a beginner, it's really hard to bend the wires. And you can take your wire, I'm just going to use, this is like an example. I had started doing this, and you can literally bend it around, and that'll make it easier if, say, this is about, what you want to do is check if you have something cylindrical like that, that it's about the same size. See, that's almost perfect. So I've done that, and then I can, it's much easier to fit that around there and start working on the rest of the piece. And of course, it's easier if you have it on some Loctite putty on a self-healing mat, and then you'll be able to work with it. But when you get to the point of wanting to do something a little bit more advanced, like a coil, if I can find it, here it is. So that's a coil. This is a purple coated copper wire over copper that was oxidized but not polished. As you can see, it's quite dark looking. And I want to explain briefly, I'm going to do a video about making a coil at some point, but briefly I want to explain to you how this works. You get, now you can get a tool, I don't know what it's called, it's like a hand crank to do your coils. I find it easier to use my husband's drill. The drill that we have, it stands up straight, so it's not like you have to somehow hold on to it while you do it. It'll stand straight. You set it down. You put the end of, say, a 20 gauge wire that'll be totally straight, unlike this, and the end of a weaving wire, like 26 gauge, into the chuck, which if I do a video, I'll explain that. Basically the end of the drill. And then you need to attach that wire to the end of something else. I do this ever sophisticated little thing. I take this handkerchief and I put it through this little carabiner here. And you can get these things at hardware stores too. And it's the important thing when you're doing a coil is to have something that swivels. And then you'll wrap your wire a few times in there. And then you'll have this attached to the wire, and then the wires are attached to the drill, and then you'll crank up that drill, you'll hold on to your weaving wire, and it'll just coil nicely all the way along. Again, I'll do a video on that at some point, but that's one of the things you can do with wire wrapping, and it's a lot of fun. And it can make really cool, interesting looking pieces. So I think I've covered quite a bit. Please ask me questions in the comments if you have any, because I'm happy to answer your questions. I really like to know what you think. So you want to have a container for all your sharp bits that you cut off with your flush cutters. Oh, and let me explain flush cutters. They're called flush cutters because one side is very, very fat. This cuts it flush so that the cut is going to look like that. And then if you cut it the other way, make sure you hold on to your wire bits whenever you cut, because you don't want them going flying all over the place. But anyway, when you cut it the other way, if you can see this, it has a little bit of a beveled edge. And then you can kind of press that edge down, and then you'll have a little bit of a point. And that helps you if you're making swirls and things to have a little bit of a point, because it just looks a little more interesting than a flat cut, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, so I'm going to show you the containers for my wires and my beads and my stones and what my dining room table looks like. So you're going to be privy to seeing the chaos behind what happens in my house. Okay, these are those containers I talked about. So it is 8 in each side, and they're all different colors, and that's very helpful. This one's pink, and it says pink, orange hearts. So you can label each one of these, and I tend to put purple stones in a purple container and blue stones in a blue container. But then on the top, I put that the cabs and the flat stones are over here, and the tumbled stones and odd shapes are over here. That helps to keep it a little bit organized. And I've also got other components in different cases. So everything has a different spot and a different label. And let's move over here. Got another light that I use. Some of this is my painting supplies, but these are called craft keepers, and they're really great. Craftmates Craft Keepers, I think they're called. And you open them up. Sorry about the noise. I put all my beads in these. I try to organize them by shape and color and such, but I have 4 of these, and they each contain 8 clear divider things. So 8 of these and 7 slots in each one. So that gives you lots of different spaces for your beads and such. So as you can see, I have 4 of them, so I have a lot of this stuff. Okay, now we're going to move on to my wires. So these are my wires. This is a different type of container, has a lid with a handle. This is where I keep my spools. This is sterling silver, then my gold fill, then my copper, and this is just something else, but I do have 4 of these. And then these are lots of different cords that I use. When you make your own cord, having a lighter is really important, especially a long one, to keep your hand away from any fire. Again, if you want to watch the other video, you'll see that how that's done. So also I make bracelets, and these can be really cool for that. But you know, you have different colors, different thicknesses, and those are really great for making your own cords. And it's cheaper really to make your own cords. Now chains, I'm not sure if it's actually worth it because it takes a lot of time to make chains on your own. The last thing I am going to cover, so this is my floor light, and this is my dining room table, and that TV is really great because I do the AirPlay so that I can see what I'm doing, and I just recently got that, so hopefully my videos are going to be a lot better than they initial ones where I had trouble seeing what I was doing. Oh, for safety, just be careful with the tools too, because they're sharp. So this is my my dining room table, and well, there's some pieces I made, and you know, it's just a ridiculous mess, but it is what it is. And you know, it looks like a bomb exploded on the table, really. But there is always a method to my madness. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I would really love to hear your comments and your feedback about, you know, whatever. I'm going to keep trying to make more videos, but I really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe and comment. It helps me out more than you know. So have a great night, and I'll hopefully be back next week with another video making something that's fun. Okay, take care. Bye.